need this building in time, so that's not part of what he's trying to do for us, and it's nothing that has to be involved, and we're asking him to say, what do people want in it, what should it look like, maybe where should we build it, and what would it cost to do that?
And are we limiting him to, like, do we want a pool, do we not? Like, if he gets a lot of input, such as we want a
Right.
pool,
So
or we want.
that's a really good
pool?
point, because if you remember, if we go back 15 months, if you can go back that far,
Yeah,
when we first started, we said anything goes.
right,
We had no idea, we had started with a blank sheet, and then by visiting over 30 centers, we started narrowing it all down. But there's nothing on paper yet,
right.
so therefore, you know, in the end, yes, the pool is a major factor.
Right.
Okay, so I would like, personally, I would like to have a number, you know, that, or an option and say, okay, this is what I can build here, this is what it's gonna cost if we do a traditional, because we know what it's gonna look like, 20,000 square feet, meeting rooms on the side, a big auditorium, okay, we got that. Now, what if you throw on a pool, how much is that? You know, and then, given those two options, what does the town want, what do people want? I mean, they may say, we really want the pool, not interested in your meeting rooms, you know, let's build a building around the pool. I mean, if they're interested in that, then it's their money,
Yeah.
you know, it may be worth it to them, you know? And we talk about the money all the time. And, you know, I said at a meeting the other night, that I think what was Shelton's price? Shelton was the cheapest one we went to, right? 1990, they built it. They owned the property and they built it for what?
Like $1.5 million, it was something really crazy
Yeah,
cheap.
yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
So in Newtown's going for 35 million, their final number. Okay.
GE has deep pockets.
Right, so I mean, that's your spread. Hopefully we'll be closer to, okay, but a lot of them were like 6, 8.
Yeah,
You know.
yeah, 6 or 8, I say.
And if we own the land, then that's not a problem, you know, then it's not an amount. So then you say, okay, it sounds like a lot of money, but it's a one-time expenditure. It's a one-time expenditure. You know, our budget every year is $170 million. And that's every year. So you're talking about a 6 day without a pool, one-time expenditure. So if you put it into perspective, you know, because people were upset that we got $175,000 from the town council to take the first step. Well, I voted for reconditioning the playground in Indian Ledge, which is already there, by the way, for $250,000. There's no running water, there's no electricity, there's no roof, there's no basement. And that cost $250,000. We had no problem approving that. I think that, you know, the 175 is pretty reasonable now for a municipal investigation.
And I think the community also looks differently. The younger people like having that sprinkler park and
Yeah.
the parks, and I think we have, if this is a community / senior, we really need that input on what everybody's looking for.
I agree, and obviously, public input has been kind of a thorn in my side for a long time, you know, back to survey conversation. So I guess I'm trying to understand, are we looking just for this architectural firm to find what the public wants? What are our means? Because what we've done thus far, I don't think is sufficient, and now, after finding out the anonymous surveys weren't anonymous, I think it adds another, those are kind of thrown away in my mind, where whatever information we got from that. And I think now that the word is out there a little bit more publicly, but the thing is, I mean, you know, you say if he goes to a PTA meeting or goes here, he goes there, I mean, that's only as good as how many people show up. That's really all you're hearing from.
But the thing is that maybe knowing that our first survey fell short of reception, and I said there's so many, everybody was critical about what we didn't do, 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 what we didn't do. And what we did do, part of it was because you missed it. But I think that if nothing else, we've learned a lesson that if we are going to coordinate meetings with this firm, well, one of the things he talked about to me was possibly doing different voting districts. And we would go to each district, and
All
we
seven of
would
them.
probably be in trouble times, and as much, you know, on the webpage and everything else that we can do to tell those people, hey, this day, this firm is gonna be in, maybe in a school in your neighborhood, you know, maybe it's Bullfield School, maybe it's whatever, and say, hey, gonna be 10 o'clock in the morning, open meeting. I mean, other than knock on your door and drive your.
Yeah, no, Mike, and I, you know, like that idea, I think then he hit each part of the town, but once again, the troubled times, the whatever, wasn't sufficient before to get the word out, so I guess I go back to, how is there a way, and if that's their best plan of how they do it, based on how they've done it before, how is there a way that every house in Trumbull knows about this? I mean, I think that's my
I don't know
concern.
that we would put it on him to contact those people. I think maybe as a committee and as a town, we need to orchestrate.
Absolutely.
And do the communication part of it, and just making sure he shows up and he's able to work his expertise on extracting from people what they want to hear and do that. But I do believe that we should be the people behind you, saying, hey, here's a meeting, we got put posters up at Stop and Shop or something, say, here's your district, it's gonna be here, and maybe we do a mailing and say, here's your date, here's your date, here's your date, here's your date.
Well, I guess that's what I'm trying to get to,
Well,
cause we
here's what
kind of
I'm
afterwards
planning.
talked about maybe
You know-
sticking it in a tax bill, and maybe is there an opportunity?
Well, I think what's important for us to consider too is his professional ability, and his experience to be able to share with us what is an appropriate response for a community this size. So if we're a population of 36,000, is 1% a good response? Is 3% a good response? Like, what's our target? You know, and I think with his experience and the projects that he's done in the past, I think he could probably tell us what kind of a response would be adequate or really what we're targeting.
And
So
maybe as a
who-
committee, we can agree on a percentage that
You know,
we're
well,
interested in?
I think we should follow his recommendations, or at least listen to what his recommendations are. I mean, of the 1,100 responses that we got from both surveys,
Mhm.
I don't know, maybe that's a good response, maybe that's a poor response, I don't know. I really think that it's
I
good
agree.
for us to listen to, his professional
He's the
insight.
expert at this.
Yeah, the expert.
No, I agree, I just think if we're gonna set him up to try to do these, you know, I think back to our, public hearings, and I just hope that we as a committee can find a better way to let every household know that they exist. Not to expect every household to show up, because you're right,
I think
and
that's not
we're never gonna
realistic.
hit 100%.
No.
But 100% of everybody in this town, as Joe said, it's their money. I think it's really important that we kind of brainstorm ways to get the information out that this is your opportunity. And, it's not an easy thing to do, but I think we need to think of ways. I mean, I've heard, you know, I know last time we talked briefly, you know, is it a robocall? Is it a mailing that's in something else? Do we spend some money on a mailing? I just think we won't have anybody questioning as long as we've informed everybody. We can't make them come,
Right.
but I think it is our duty and our responsibility to let every taxpayer know that those opportunities will exist.
And it is their duty and responsibility to show up if they wanna voice their
Agreed.
opinion.
I'm saying what
Yeah.
our
Okay,
responsibility
okay,
is.
but we
Yeah.
did do an awful lot of publicity, and people chose not to come to meetings. That's their decision.
But you know, we've talked about that, I get what you're saying, I still think people didn't know, and so whether,
They
to
also
me,
We
that
really
says.
don't know if they didn't know.
Then in my tax bill, I received,
Yeah.
Yeah, I was just
We
gonna
did.
say, you know, the
information
post office
saying if you wanted
did send out a
to-
letter on the tax
Yeah,
bill,
we
and
did.
perhaps we've gotten back
I read it,
25
maybe.
or 30
That's all.
letters.
And then with everybody in
But,
town.
Yep.
yes, that's,
Yeah,
You gotta read it.
you got, it was in with the
Everybody
tax
in
bill.
there.
It was in your tax
I mean,
bill.
unless
Laura.
it was when I was
It was-
dedicated,
it was in-
right?
it
Unless you're not
was in
paying
with
your
the tax
taxes.
bill.
Yeah,
Discuss
no,
that right now.
true.
I think we're gonna put it into the scope, and I think he has a vehicle to take, that, he has an approach already to think about getting everybody involved, so I think once we get into the scope, we asked him, he knows this is an issue for this town, for, public, and
Just
everybody's.
the
and I think-
publicizing, yeah.
And he has done this in other towns, and he has, he has different things to do, maybe, you know, outside the box that we're thinking, so. Once we get the scope and we get him, he knows it's the first thing he has to do, it's not just going to the senior center, or, you know, PTA or Little League, there's other avenues he has, and that's why we hired him, and that's why we're gonna hire him.
Yeah, I would like to know what he has to say, because he impressed me as
He's
researching
very
the town.
I think
He knew
he'll
the
make
town when
everybody
he
feel
came in
comfortable
here.
once
I just would like to know, what options we can give him as a town, is what I'm saying. Can we use a robocall? Can we use an email? Can